All right, Sam Shoemate, man, you were part of a pretty big story yesterday. I'm sure everybody saw the Sean Ryan interview. If you haven't, go ahead and pause this right now. Go watch the interview, and then you'll have the context for what we're talking about. But the first thing I noticed in the kind of wake of this is that there were some guys doing something that the term is news jacking, where they take a popular story, something that's going viral, and then they insert themselves into the story to try to draw attention to themselves. And what I saw
Yeah.
is rather like this. I don't know. I'll just describe him as this bigger gentleman, and he seemed to be attacking your credibility. And I didn't even really fully understand the context of what he was trying to say, other than maybe you may have like faked this email. And so I want to give you an opportunity to address that. So
Okay.
did you hear that, and do you know what he was talking about?
I haven't listened to his stuff. I saw it spinning around. And he kept tagging me and stuff. He's been doing this since May. He did this when the account was much smaller over on Terminal CWO on Instagram, and I put out a story over there. I had I had had I had a couple of field grade officers that reached out to me. They were in a staff meeting from Fort. I'm going to call it Fort Rucker because that's just what I call it. It's what I've always called it. It's actually Fort Novacell now, but Fort Rucker. They reached out and they had been in the staff meeting and they were briefed at the time by the USACI commanding general that funds were going to dry up and they were looking at a potential cutoff of training funds by May 15th. And I was like, holy cow, that's big news. And then I had several people reach out in the messages on Instagram and they were telling me the same things because I have a fairly large following from that community, the flight community over there. And somebody sent me an email, and the email was from a CW3 on staff there. Well, I didn't edit anything out of that email. It came pre-edited. They edited out the signature block and who it was to and everything else. It came to me blacked out from who sent it to me. So I didn't edit anything. If I wanted to manipulate that email, I could have easily gone down there and blacked out the Fort Rucker. But the issue was the person that sent that email out, and the email stated the same thing that those officers said in the staff meeting, which was that funding was potentially going to dry up, although they did caveat and say, I don't think it's going to happen. Um, they they had in their signature block Fort Rucker, Alabama. Well, that was unconscionable to this individual, this large influencer. No, it was changed to Fort Rucker or Fort Novacell 8 months ago. There's no way it would have been Fort Rucker on there. And I'm like, you apparently don't know warrant officers, and you apparently don't know the scuttle around the naming of these bases. People were like upset, and they're like, I'm not changing the name. People still call it Fort Bragg. They're not going around calling it Fort Liberty. Fort Liberty. They call it Fort Bragg. And so this idea but it wasn't just that he said it was a fraudulent email. He said this is Russian disinformation. I'm like, first of all, why does it have to be Russian? I don't understand the label of Russian disinformation. But he tried to say that I had manufactured the whole email and then I took a picture of it, and that was somehow Russian disinformation. I was trying to steer this because in the email it said that the funds were being diverted to Ukraine for this training, and so I was a disinformation uh, propagandist for Russia, I guess. I guess that's the Russian disinformation. But anyways, it was a legitimate email. It was, and I felt comfortable putting it all out and everything else. Well, I got blasted for that because the congressional representative showed up, and she was like, "What's going on? Are you losing funding?" So with all the focus on this story, um, they ended up getting their money. Which, like the email said, I don't think it's going to actually go away, but they ended up getting their money, and then I got smashed for it. And they were like, "Oh, you put out this fake stuff," and I'm like, "It's a real email, dude. I didn't go to the effort of ginning up an Outlook email with timestamps, and the whole thing was so bizarre." But then now he showed up, and he's like, "This is the same guy who fabricated other emails. He's fabricating this email." And I'm like, dude, I'm trying to show you everything I can, man. I'm showing you guys the headers with all of the metadata in it. I'm showing you everything I can possibly show you. I posted everything on my timeline. This is about transparency. It, I'll stop there because we have more questions, and we'll talk about the inception of all this. But that's kind of the scuttle around that. So
Yeah, that makes sense. I just want to give you an opportunity to address that because I saw it kind of going viral, and
yeah,
it didn't make much sense. I looked at what he said. I saw the emails. I saw the information that you shared with this one, and you've got a rather large social media following, and you've been reporting on a lot of these, military veteran issues. So seem to be kind of
Well,
aligned with what you've been working on.
ironically, and I'll add this to it, somebody showed up in my messages and blasted me and said, Are you doxing people?" And this was right after the thing. And I said, "What are you talking about?" Apparently somebody had put on Reddit, in the aviation Reddit, the full email unredacted, which I don't even have because it came to me redacted, but somebody had put it on the Reddit aviation and they thought I posted it on there from an anonymous account. And so somebody showed up on my messages, was blasting me. I was like, hold the F up, dude. I didn't post anything to Reddit. I'm not on Reddit. I trust me, I don't go onto Reddit snooping around because they don't like me over there. So, like, this was a real email that existed. People had copies of it. It circulated all around the base. Regardless, here we are.
Yeah, tracking. So now talk to me a little bit about how you came across this manifesto, and you covered it on Sean Ryan's show, but there was again kind of from that same crowd, um, kind of questioning your credibility in
Sure.
providing this manifesto.
Yeah. So having a small niche following like Terminal CWO over on Instagram, which is popular among crowds in the military, but by no means is it followed by everybody in the military. There are a large amount of people at the time. It's blown up since then, but at the time I had 53,000 followers over there, and it's been going for a long time. But apparently, this guy, what he told me was that he had messaged me before. He said, "Hey, I talked to you before," and he started off by messaging in the comments, like he was leaving comments because, and I explained this on the podcast, but the way Instagram works is if you have a large following, whatever, it goes to messages and then hidden message. Like there's like even a third folder of like more hidden messages. But it's if you don't go into each of the folders and look for those messages and actively try to find them, you're going to miss them. And I've had people get angry at me about it before, like, F you, dude. I tried to reach out to you. And I'm like, I'm sorry, man. I can't catch all the hundreds of messages that come in constantly, dude. Like, I'm not trying to ignore you, but people get upset by this. But this guy kept leaving comments on posts like, "Hey, I sent you a DM. Hey, I sent you a DM." So I went in there and I looked for the DM, and it didn't exist initially. And then he sent another message, and that popped up since I had opened up his message. And I was like, "Hey, I didn't see your DM before." So he tells me, he said, like I said, I've spoken to you before. And then he says, "What I'm going to show you is going to change the course of humanity." This was telling you verbatim because literally it was that dramatic of a sentence. It's going to change the course of humanity. And once again, for all of those out there, like, why didn't you take this seriously? When people say nonsense to me like that, I ignore it out of hat. I'm like, dude, you're not changing the course of humanity with whatever you're going to tell me. Sorry, just stop. It's I don't have time for your nonsense. But I said, "Hey, our email is in the bio." Or, told him where the email was. I said, "Here's my signal at. Send me a message, whatever else." So he did, and he sends me that initial message, and I posted it, and it was, I'm messaging you something to the effect of, "I'm messaging you on Wi-Fi from or through a VPN. Don't message me back." Roger that. Don't message you back. So I didn't. And I went back to Instagram and I said, "Hey, I got your message." And he said, "Delete this." I said, "Okay." So I deleted it. And I do this all the time. This is not an unstandard practice. People are very scared that their chains of command are going to catch them. Okay. I deal with whistleblowers from the military. So they're so afraid. They send me messages and they're like, "Hey, keep me anonymous, keep me anonymous." And they'll post things and, or, send me information about like, just bad practices going on with their chains of command. So I'm in the habit, if somebody asks me to delete it, I delete it. Just like if a source gives me information and says, "Don't post this," I'm telling you this like for your context, but don't post this. Okay, I'm not going to post it. I have to respect the source's wishes. Have to. And I've made this clear to people. And they get angry. They get really angry when people are like, "Well, I need to know the information." This actually happened with the the New Orleans attacker. I could not post why he got flagged in 2015 when he was leaving the Army because the source said, "Do not post the reason for him getting flagged," before he ETS'd. People were furious. They're like, "Grow some nuts, man. Post it." I'm like, it's not about nuts, man. It's not my information. Somebody asked me not to post it. It's a source and they don't want to get caught. They are afraid of telling me this information. So going forward, this guy follows up. He says, I'm going to hit you up in 2 to 3 days. And he sends me a follow on email on Tuesday, the day before this all went down. And that was the manifesto. That was the block of stuff. You've seen it now. Everybody in the world's seen it. I looked at the manifesto, and right off the bat, the dude's talking about UFO technology. And I'm like, I'm out. I'm out. This is stupid. I'm not reading this. I almost didn't even finish the email. I read it simply because curiosity. I had nothing else going on. So I scroll through the email. I didn't even read it in full. I just kind of skimmed through it. Okay, dude talking about war crimes. He's talking about he's got the FBI chasing him, and everybody's always got the FBI chasing him, right? Everybody thinks the FBI is onto him. I'm like, dude, the FBI is not onto you. They're not chasing you. They don't care about you. You're not that important. And this is what I deal with though all the time in the inbox from people. So going down, he leaves his information and he says, "This is who I am. I'm Matt Berg, also Matt Liversberger, Livelsberger, however you pronounce it. And here's my LinkedIn." So I go to his LinkedIn. I checked it out. I see, okay, if this is Matt Livelsberger who messaged me, LinkedIn checks out his resume. He's UAS operator guy. He's got the credentials from USASOC. Dude looks legit on LinkedIn. I don't know if this guy is Matt Livelsberger, but it's a legit Proton Mail account, and I left it at that. I walked away from it, and several hours later, I messaged him and I said, "Hey, man, I can't do anything with this. If I talk about this on social media, I'm just another UFO talking head." And and he replies back once again, and he had asked for this several times. "Can you get me in touch with Sean Ryan? Can you get me in touch with Hegseth, Fox News?" And no, I can't because I'm not that special. I don't have like, hey, let me pull out my bat phone and call Pete Hegseth on the red line, like, no, I'm not that person. So I didn't think anything about it. And the next morning I wake up, no, not the morning. So he sends that on Tuesday. Wednesday happens, whatever. I see a guy blows up a car outside the Trump Tower. Don't think anything about it. Man, it sucks. It's crazy. New Orleans happened. The Tesla thing happened. I go to bed. I wake up in the morning and my buddy Corey sent me a message and he's like, "Hey, Sam, you know this guy? Nobody else in the community knows him." Holy crap. Holy crap. And I actually played that message of my audio message on the podcast for Sean Ryan, but it's like quite a few F bombs. I was in shock. I was literally waking up out of bed, just checking my phone, whatever, and I saw that and like pure shock, adrenaline surge through me. I'm like, dude, I know this guy. He messaged me, bro. I in full panic. And so you go from there. I'm just trying to figure out what to do. My initial take my initial take is just to do nothing. I knew what was coming. I knew what was coming, which is happening right now. Okay. My I'm in the grinder. I'm in the grinder of information and media. You've been there before, but it's brutal, man. Like tearing me apart. People are like, "Yeah, we support you," and people are like, "You're a fraud. You're fake. You generated this. You're garbage. You're such a liar." And you're in the grinder, and everybody's because I'm not a public figure. It's not like I'm. It's not like I'm a big name like I don't know, Tucker Carlson. People have already decided if they hate me or like me. No, nobody knows who I am. So they get to punch me into what they want me to be. So all these accounts are showing up just to punch me into the place they want me to be. Is this guy conservative? Is he liberal? What are his views on this? Let's tear him apart. Let's keep him in his place. Why would somebody send their manifesto to him? That's the idea. Like, who am I? Well, if you understand the context that this guy has messaged me before, I run a somewhat popular military social media account and he was military, then you would understand why he reached out to me, which I said in the podcast. I'm like the D-list media. People reach out to me here. And then if it's a really good, like this needs to be known, I can bounce it around. I can work on it on my own, post it, or I can get it to a reporter. I have a lot of reporter friends that I trust and they'll do something with it or whatever else. And I've had success over the years doing this, but that's why. That's the answer.
I don't think people understand how many messages you get like this if you have any decent sized following on social media. I get multiple a day and I try to read them, try to respond if I can, but there's a ton of just like completely off the wall schizo messages and you just if you try to engage on each of these, that's all you could do. So I get not seeing it and it makes sense why he would send it to you as well. To me, it makes sense because he's not going to get a response from Sean Ryan or Tucker Carlson. I mean, they get inundated